My husband said it at the dinner table on our 9th wedding anniversary. Not as an argument. Not in the middle of a fight. He said it the way people say things they have been thinking for a long time and have finally decided to stop filtering. You have contributed nothing to this marriage. He said it calmly. He picked up his fork and continued eating. I set down my wine glass. I looked at him across the table. I thought about the folder in my filing cabinet in the home office down the hall. The folder I had been updating for 3 years. Not because I expected this moment, but because I am an accountant and I document things. It is what I do. I excused myself from the table. I went to the office. I came back with a single blue folder and placed it between our dinner plates. He looked at it. He put down his fork. He said, "What is that?" I said, "That's your answer. My name is Catherine Holt. I am 41 years old. I am a certified public accountant." And the evening my husband told me I had contributed nothing, the folder on our dinner table contained a precise, documented record of exactly what I had contributed down to the last dollar. The total was $247,000. Drop your city in the comments right now. Tell me what time it is where you are. And stay with me until the end. Because the silence that followed when my husband read that number is the clearest thing I remember about that entire evening. My husband, Paul Holt, was a high school history teacher. He loved his work with a sincerity I had always respected. He was good with students. He was patient and methodical in the classroom. He was by every measure that mattered to him exactly where he had chosen to be. What Paul was not was well compensated. Teaching salaries in our district were modest. His income covered his personal expenses and a portion of our shared costs. We had discussed it when we married. I earned significantly more as a CPA, and we had agreed that the financial structure of our household would reflect that reality. What I had not understood at the time we made that decision was how Paul's relationship with the financial imbalance would change over 9 years. The shift was gradual. In the early years, Paul expressed gratitude openly. He acknowledged what I contributed. Then, somewhere around year 4 or 5, something changed. The gratitude became quieter. The acknowledgement disappeared. And in its place grew a revised understanding of our history, a version of our marriage in which Paul's contributions were significant and visible, and mine were somehow ambient, present, but unattributed. I watched this revision develop over years. I did not challenge it directly. I am not by nature someone who argues about things that are more efficiently documented. So I documented. I want to be specific, because specificity is the point. I created a spreadsheet. 14 columns: date, category, amount, payment method, account used, and notes. I updated it every time I made a payment that came from my income rather than from our shared account. I kept the receipts in the folder behind printed monthly summaries. This is not unusual behavior for a CPA. We document. It is the professional habit that extends into personal life whether we intend it to or not. What was unusual was that I had a reason to be more careful than usual, a slow, gathering sense that the record would one day need to exist outside my own memory. When I paid our mortgage, I recorded it. When I covered the car insurance, I recorded it. When I funded our emergency account, I recorded it. When I paid for the vacation Paul had planned and then discovered was beyond what our joint account held, I recorded it. When I covered the medical expense that had not been anticipated, I recorded it. I recorded everything for 3 years, because at some point I had understood clearly that the day would arrive when the documentation would matter. I had not anticipated that the day would arrive on our anniversary. Paul's comment had not come from nowhere. We had been discussing whether to refinance the mortgage. The conversation had become tense. Paul had made comments that suggested he believed our financial positions were more equal than they were. I had not corrected him in the moment. 3 days later, at our anniversary dinner, he said what he said. I went to the office. I came back with the folder. He opened it. The first page was a summary, a single sheet showing 3 years of documented contributions by category: mortgage payments, insurance premiums, utility bills, vehicle expenses, vacation costs, medical bills, emergency fund deposits, tax payments on jointly held assets. At the bottom of the summary page was the total: $247,000, contributed by me, over 3 years, documented with receipts, bank statements, and transaction records organized by date. Paul read the summary page. He turned to the second page, which was the mortgage breakdown. He turned to the third, which was the insurance history. He did not speak for a long time. I ate my dinner. I had made it myself, that evening roasted chicken, the meal he had always said was his favorite. I had spent 40 minutes on it that afternoon. The candles we had lit for the anniversary were still burning. I want to tell you what it felt like to sit across from my husband at our anniversary dinner while he read a document I had spent 3 years building. It did not feel like victory. It did not feel like vindication. It felt like something quieter and more permanent, the specific feeling of having been honest, finally, in a way that no one could reframe or revise or talk themselves around. The numbers were the numbers. They had always been the numbers. The only thing that had changed was that Paul was now reading them. Paul set the folder down. He looked at it. He looked at me. I didn't realize, he said. I know, I said. Why didn't you tell me? Because, I said, I wanted to know whether you would arrive at this conversation on your own. Whether you would look at our life and understand what it was made of without me having to explain it. He was quiet. You didn't, I said. You looked at our life and concluded I had contributed nothing. So I brought the folder. Paul picked it up again. He turned back to the summary page. He sat with the number for a long time. Paul did not get defensive. He did not argue with the documentation. He said, I owe you an apology. He said it quietly, and he meant it. I could tell the difference, after 9 years. I think I've been telling myself a story about us, he said. A version where things were more even than they were. Because the real version made me feel like I wasn't. He stopped. Like you weren't providing, I said. Yes, we sat with that for a moment. The candles continued burning. The chicken was good. The real version, I said, is that we made a decision together and I carried the financial side of it and you carried other things. The problem isn't the arrangement. The problem is that you forgot I was carrying it. He looked at the folder again. $247,000. In 3 years. He closed the folder. He set it to the side. He looked at me the way he had not looked at me in several years directly, without the layer of revised history between us. I'm sorry, he said, for what I said, and for what I let myself believe. That was our 9th anniversary dinner. Our 10th is in 4 months. We are still married. The folder is back in the filing cabinet. I have not needed to update it since that evening, because the conversation we had made certain things visible that had been invisible for too long. Paul still teaches. I still work as a CPA. We have had conversations in the months since that anniversary dinner that we had not had in years about money, about contribution, about the specific way that financial imbalances in a marriage can become invisible to the person who benefits from them. Those conversations have been the most honest we have had in a long time. I kept the folder. It sits in the 3rd drawer of the filing cabinet in my home office. I see it every time I open that drawer. I have thought about what the folder represents beyond the specific 3 years it documents. I think it represents the discipline of seeing clearly, of recording what is actually happening rather than what is comfortable to believe is happening. Paul's revised version of our marriage was not malicious. It was human. We all tell stories about ourselves that make us more central to our own narratives than the evidence strictly supports. What documentation does is hold the narrative accountable to what actually occurred. And accountability, applied gently and at the right moment, is not a weapon. It is a correction. I did not put the folder on the table to end something. I put it on the table because something had needed to be said for years, and I had found the clearest possible way to say it. Paul understood. That is the part I could not have guaranteed in advance. He read the number and he sat with it, and he told me the truth about why he had let himself believe what he had believed. That is its own kind of gift, not a small one. Now I want to hear from you. If someone told you that you had contributed nothing, what would you have done? Would you have argued? Or would you have put a folder on the table? Tell me in the comments, and tell me the city you are watching from. I want to see how far Catherine's story has traveled. Subscribe before you go. More stories are coming that you will not want to miss.